My name is Wells Wilder, and I would like to welcome you to our Delta video workshop. The purpose of this workshop is to answer the most often asked question, how do I get started with Delta? If you have not already read the Delta book, then I would suggest you read the book before you watch the video. If you have read the book, then you should have it handy because we will be referring to it from time to time. There are two ways to get started with Delta. One way is to do it yourself. The other way is to join the club, or if you will, become a member of the Delta Society International. We're going to stress in this video how to do it yourself. And the way to do it yourself is to start with what's given in the book and build on that. Now, in the book, we are given the solution to 6 different markets on the intermediate term time frame. And we will be discussing the intermediate term time frame, but as you know, the medium term and the long term are the same as the intermediate term except for the position of the colored lines. Now in the book, the solution is given for 6 different intermediate term markets. And they are live cattle, soybeans, pork bellies, sugar, cotton, and T-bonds. Now some of these commodities are also members of families, which means that live cattle, for example, is the same solution as feeder cattle. Soybeans has the same solution as soybean meal, soybean oil, and all of the grains. Pork bellies, the same solution as live hogs, and T-bonds, the same solution as T-bills, T-notes, and Eurodollar. So if you add all of these up, you have 16 commodities of the 25 that Delta follows. So you have the solution already for 16 of these commodities. Now having a solution means that you know how many points there are in the series, and you also know the position of point 1 relative to the colored lines. So to get started, you need to use some historical charts and draw the colored lines on the charts, and the dates for these colored lines are in the back of your Delta book study guide. Another way to do it is to use the one day at a time program, and it will draw your charts for you and also put the colored lines on the charts. Now the idea is to take the given solution in the book and apply that solution to historical data. And in doing so, over 10 series, then you will come up with the average position of each point relative to the colored lines. Now the average position means how many days is it from that point to the nearest colored line. I will use the one day at a time charts for this, and the first thing I do is to put the solution, that is a solution given in the book on Jim's charts, at the bottom of each chart, or the top if you prefer, so that I can relate the market movement to this solution. Now normally you would use about 6 charts because you want to use 10 series, like 3 1/3 years. However, in the interest of time, I'm just going to use 4 charts here, and then I'll go through each chart and show you how I relate the chart action to the solution at the bottom. All right, first let's begin with chart number 1. It looks like number 1 is a low and 2 is a high, so we'll go 1, 2, then down to a 3, up to a 4, down to a 5, and we notice in between the blue and the yellow lines we have 4 turning points, and they are 6, 7, 8, 9. Now notice that high 8 is a little bit to the right of where it should be, but we also know that momentum on that upward move tends to skew the point a little bit to the right. And the point 9 then came back right about where it's supposed to be. Now, another thing we can do if we had any question about that 8 is start back at 12 and go 12, 11, 10. So if we look between that yellow line and the green line, and we try to match up 10, 11, 12, there's only one way to do it. It's very obvious. High 10, low 11, high 12. So we can come from both ends toward the middle, and the idea is to find the best match. Now, continuing on chart 1, past the green line, we know we have another point 1 coming up. And so if we look at point 2, we know point 2 must be a low, don't we? So therefore, point 1 must be a high. So we start off with the point 1, the low 1, to the right of the green line. We move up to an in-between point, which we call a dotted point because we put a dotted circle around it. And I'll refer to that as like a dot 1. We come down to a 2, right there at the red line. And again, that down move, the momentum moves that 2 a little bit to the right of where it shows on the chart. So now going down to chart 2, we see the 3, 4, 5 between the red and the blue. Then we see the 6, high 7, low 8, high 9. All 4 of those points came between the blue and the yellow. And finally, we see the 10, 11, and 12. Now notice also the big move from 11 to 12, and again, the big move from 12 to 1. And so now looking at continuing on chart 2 between the green line and the red line, we know we must have a high 2 here because that fits exactly where the 2 position should be. And that gives us the clue then that we have a 1, high 1, then a 1 dot in between point, back up to a high 2. We continue with a low 3, a high 4, a low 5, and then on with a high 6, a low 7, a high 8. Now that 8 was early, and that told us that there's a lot of pressure overhead, and we're probably going to get a pretty good down move off that point because it came early. And of course, that's what it did. We then have a 9, a 10, down to a low 11, and now we move to chart 3, and we have a high 12. Now we're starting again the next series. We know the 1, 2 move must be from a low 1 to a high 2. So we go to a high 2, down to a 3, up to a 4, down to a 5, and a high 6. Now this 6 came early, and we might have some doubt, is that the right rotation? So why don't we skip over here to the 12 and say, now how does this have to be the way it ends up? Well, it's got to be a high 12, low 11, high 10, low 9. That confirms then that we're on the right track. And so we come back and finish up our series with a low 7, high 8, and a low 9. Continuing on chart 3, again, we have a high 1 just to the right of the green line, going down to a low 2, up to a high 3, a low 4, a high 5. Now notice that 5 again is early, and that is telling us that there's a lot of upward pressure. That 5 is trying to make its high, but the weakness there is causing it to come early. And we'll also get a down move, which we expect off an early point, down to a low 6. Now going down to chart 4, we pick up the low 6, high 7, low 8, high 9, and again 10, 11, 12. So if we just look at those points, 10, 11, 12, between the yellow and the green, we can see it has to be that way, doesn't it? There's no other way it can be. That confirms that our rotation as we started is the right rotation. So now we're looking at chart 4 in the last series, and again, we know that 2, 3 point usually crosses that red line, and 2 is, we sort of look at 2 there first and say, okay, where has 2 got to be? Well, 2's got to be a low. And so then we come back and we say, okay, it goes 1, 2, 3, but there's a high point right there just before the 1, and that means we have a 12 in between point. So we put a 12 dot and a circled 1, 1 dot, circle 2, and we have a double inversion on that chart. And then we continue on the red line. We have a high 3, low 4, high 5, low 6, high 7. Now look at that run there between the low 4 and the high 7. This is something that happens occasionally, and it's also pointed out in the book under the chapter Classification of Points. And actually you should read the classification of points before you start solving this, because it will tell you some of these little nuances that you can expect to see from time to time. So what happens is there, we know we got a 4, we know where the 7 is, so we come back and we pencil in the 5, 6 where they should be. And in doing that, we try to find a little high, a little low there that would represent the 5, 6. Now this doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, then that's the way you handle it. We now have a high 7 down to a low 8 and back up to a high 9, and then 10, 11, 12. And looking at the last green line there, we see that we think point 1 is a low, and that means there had to be an in-between point then after the 12, which made the 12 dot. So this is the kind of procedure you go through. This is the kind of reasoning you go through. And remember, if you look at both ends of the series and back them off toward the middle, then that's going to help you confirm that it all falls together. And so if you follow this procedure, you really shouldn't have any problem at all marking the market points to the known solution at the bottom of the chart or the top of the chart. And next we will go to the hard part, and that is, how do you find a solution if you don't already know the general solution? The first thing we want to try to determine when we don't have a solution and we're trying to find a new solution is the position of point 1. Now there are two things I look for in determining the position of point 1. First of all, I look for significant lows on the charts. And the second thing I look for is movement around a particular colored line, because we know that we're likely to get the most movement on either side of point 1. So what I do is just sort of look at the charts, maybe for a couple of minutes, and just try to determine where the biggest movement is on the charts and where the major lows are. So in looking at these charts, I, at this point, would pick either the green line or the red line as the line that will be nearest to point 1. And I see a major low here on one chart. I see a lot of action around the green line on one chart. And so I think I'm going to go with the green line as my first attempt at deciding where point 1 is. So now let's zero in on chart 1. I will then pick that point to the left of the green line, about where I've got point 1 circled right there now. And the next thing I'm going to do before I do anything else is then go to the other charts and circle that point 1 on all the charts, because we're going to solve this not just on one chart, but on all the charts together. So now let's look at chart 2. And we have two green lines on that chart. So on the left-hand side, I pick point 1, a significant high there to the left of the green line. And then over farther on chart number 2, to the left of the green line, I pick number 1 again. Now let's go to chart 3, and we have two green lines on that chart also. And here is where I recognize a lot of action around that green line, which was one consideration on where point 1 should be. So I'm going to pick point 1 to the left of that green line and circle that point, and then come over on chart 3 to the second green line, and I see a significant low there to the left of the green line. So I pick that as my point 1. And also this was one of the considerations in determining where to start, because of this significant low point here shown on chart 3. Now moving to chart 4, we just have one green line here, and so I pick point 1 to the left of that green line. Now you'll also notice that I have put numbers 2, 3, 4 on these charts along with 0.1. Now the reason I did that is that if 1 comes before a colored line, most likely there are going to be 3 points between that particular line that is to the right of 0.1 and the next colored line. And that's not always true, but it is very often it is true. And so what we're going to do is start and make an assumption, and we're going to say, okay, we think there'll be 3 points between the green line and the red line. So we're showing there back on chart 4, we're showing the selection for 0.1 to the left of the green line, and we've got 2, 3, 4 then for the continuation of the series. Moving to chart 5, we have 2 green lines there, and so we have a high 0.1 we've picked on chart 5, and then over to the second green line on chart 5 we have what looks like a low right there, but we'll just pick that low and see what happens. Moving on to chart 6, we have a major high just to the left of that green line, and we also pencil in our 2, 3, 4. Now it looks like on about all these charts this 1 is showing up about 1/4 of the way, or say 3/4 of the way between the yellow line and the green line. Now what I have done is set this solution up on 5 charts, because if I went through and tried to pencil in every little line here, every point, this would take a long time. So now we're finished with this chart, and I'm going to get the next chart where I have then penciled in the 2, 3, 4 for continuing the series. We have the same charts lined up vertically, and what I've done here is pencil in the 2, 3, 4 on each of the charts. So let's go to chart 1. You'll notice I pencil in the 2, 3, 4 going down to a 5. That works pretty well. We'll go to chart 2, and on the left-hand side of 2, we've got a high 2, a low 3, a high 4 going down to a 5. And on the right-hand side of chart 2, again we have a 2, a 3, and a 4. That's pretty definite. Going to chart 3, we're not sure about this. This is a little confusing here, but we'll start off and say, okay, we got a 1, and then in between 1, there's a low point in between 1, going up to a high 2, down to a 3, and up to a 4. Going over to chart number 4, we look at the 2, 3, 4. We also look at it like 4, 3, 2. It looks like 4 is going to have to be a low, 3 is a high, and 2 is a low. If that's the case, then we have to have an in-between point, a high in-between point between our original 1 and where our 2 should come. Now this is an indication here that we are probably on the right track, because we know that when we do find the correct position of point 1, it will be confirmed by an inversion that occurs around that point. So let's go to chart number 5. We have 2 series going here, the one on the left. Again, if we look at 2, 3, 4, to make it fit, or going back from 4, 3, 2, we know we have to have a high 2, a low 3, and a high 4. And we started out with a high 1, so now that puts an in-between point, or a dotted 1, low point just to the right of the green line. And moving over to the right side of chart number 5, we have a very straightforward here, 1, 2, 3, 4. We think. I question that 4 right now for a minute, because I think that 4 maybe should be the next high point right on top of the red line. But at this point, we'll just leave it there and see what happens. And now we're going down to chart 6. We have, this is really obvious here. 1, 2, 3, 4. There could be nothing clearer than that, could there? And so we're progressing along, and now we have determined the first 4 points. And so what we do then, we add the 5, 6, 7. Now again, the most likely thing is we're going to have 3 points between that red line and the blue line. So we pencil in 5, 6, 7 on each of the charts, and then we will go to our next selection and see how that worked out. Okay, now we are going to our next board, and notice that I have penciled in the 5, 6, and 7. So let's move into chart 1, and we have a low 5, a high 6, and a low 7. Now let's go to chart 2, and we note on the left-hand side we have a low 5, high 6, and a low 7, continuing our rotation. To the right-hand side of chart 2, again 5, 6, 7. And that 5 has moved over a little bit closer to where the 6 is, but we have come to learn that the momentum on that down move is likely to move the 5 over. So we're happy with that 5, 6, and 7 on chart 2. Now let's move on to chart 3. And this one worked out nicely. A low 5, high 6, low 7. We can't see the continuation on chart 3 until we get to chart 4. So let's move on to chart 4. And we pick up that rotation from chart 3. High 5, low 6, high 7. Now on to the second part of chart 4. Now we have a high 5, a low 6, and a high 7, continuing the rotation that fits very nicely. So now moving on to chart 5, again, low 5, high 6, low 7, very nicely continuing that rotation. On the second part of chart 5, again we see 5, 6, and 7. And notice that that 6 came early, but we've come to expect that because there's a lot of pressure on that 6, and we see a big down move from that 6, which we would expect from an early point. And now we'll continue down to chart 6, and again we see 5, 6, 7. Now what I've done here also on this set of charts is to pencil in 8, 9, 10. And I've done that on each chart so that we have some kind of guide here to where we think these points will come. Now if they're not 3 points between this blue line and the orange line, then it will become evident. But we're going to start with 3 because we think that is the most likely situation. So let's go to our next board and finish up this solution and see if this rotation holds all the way through on all of these series. We're progressing through this series. Now we're looking for 8, 9, and 10. And so on our number 1 chart, we see a high 8, a low 9, a high 10. Now this may bother you a little bit because you say, okay, that 8's on the wrong side of the blue line. But remember in the book we have talked about this, and these lines are at an arbitrary position. In other words, they just happen to be full moons. They could also be quarter moons and new moons or whatever. But it's not significant that a point is on either side of that line. What is significant is the distance from the chart point to what's going to end up being the average point. And so we see that rotation on chart 1 continues 8, 9, and 10. Move down to chart 2, and again we have a high 8, a low 9, a high 10, and our rotation is continuing. Now moving down to chart 3, we see that we now have, when we got to 8, 9, and 10 on this chart, it became obvious that 8, 9, and 10 could only be as shown on the chart. That is a low 8, a high 9, and a low 10. Now that's not the way we started the rotation. So what we're going to do here in getting the best fit, we're going to say, okay, if this is 8, 9, and 10 like we see it, then let's go back and put in the 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and see if how that's going to work. We do that, we go back, and it works pretty well. So now we have beginning that rotation, a low 1, a 1 dot, low 2, high 3, which came early, I admit, but we're looking for the best fit here. Low 4, high 5, low 6, high 7. That fits pretty nice. And then the 8, 9, and 10 could not fit any other way. Now this is one of the few times that we get to the end of the series and we see, okay, we did not have the best fit when we started out. That is, the rotation we were using was not the right rotation. This doesn't happen often, but I'm glad it happened on this particular series so we could point out that example. Now let's go to chart number 4. And again, 8, 9, 10, couldn't be any other way, could it? And then going to the second part of chart 4, again, 8, 9, and 10, pretty much had to be that way. And that continued our rotation that we originally set up. Going to chart 5, again, 8, 9, and 10, fit very nicely in the rotation that we had. And the second part of chart 5, we have to go down to chart 6 now to see the 8, 9, and 10. So we move down to chart 6 and we see 8, 9, 10, very nice, at the beginning of chart 6. Now moving on to the second part of chart 6, and we see the 8, 9, and 10. 8 again here is early. It's on the left-hand side of the colored line, that is the blue colored line, but it does fit. And we know that that point is just early. When we see that big move to the right of 8, we see why it was early, because there was so much pressure there, buying pressure, that point came early, and that's what we would expect in that situation. So we're almost finished with this solution. We'll look at one more board, and we'll put it all together. Okay, now we're on our last board, and we're looking to finish this up. And we're now back to the yellow line and the green line. What we see here is we're looking for a high 11 and back down to a low 1. So we didn't pencil this in because we're just going to see how this worked out. So let's go to chart number 1, and we see we have a low 11, and in between 11 down to a 1, finished up nicely. On the second part of chart number 1, we see a low 11, and then going to chart 2, we see a high 1, and that fits our rotation very nicely. Also on the same chart, the second part of chart 2, we see a high 11 coming right where it should go, and down to a low 1. On chart 3, beginning of that chart, we see 11, 11.1. On the second part of chart 3, we see 11, 1, 1.2. So you don't know exactly how it's all going to fall out until you finally get to the last point in the series and then see where the inversion is going to fall. Moving to chart 4, very nice. On the left-hand side, 10, 11, 1. The end of chart 5, we have 10, high 11, and then an 11 dot and a high 1. On chart 5, in the middle there, we have 10, 11, 11 dot, and 1. And down to chart 6, on the left-hand side, it's 10, 11, 11 dot, 1, 1 dot, 2. And toward the end of chart 6, it is 10, 11, and after that we don't know because we don't have any more information. But now that we did get this far, back up on chart number 1, we could finish that solution because of what we had from point 4 all the way to the end. But we couldn't do that until we got to the final end. And so that's the way it all falls together. And this is a solution for an unknown market. And if you follow this procedure just the way we did it, you'll find that it's not as hard as it looks like it is. Now also, one other thing, if we did not find point 1 to be where we thought it was, to the left-hand side of the green line, then at some point we were seeing this whole solution fall apart. And where it falls apart then is going to be where the actual the actual 0.1 really is. So what this means is if we go through this 2 times, we are going to find the solution, because the first time it'll fall apart at where 0.1 is supposed to be. You move to that point, start over again, and you've got the solution. Now that we have covered how to find the delta order in any market for any place in the world, I would like to now take a few minutes and show you what you would get as a member of the Delta Society International. First, I'd like to demonstrate the Delta graphics program, which puts the Delta information on all 3 time frames up on your screen in color for you to use when you're trading the markets. What we are looking at here is a bar chart, a daily bar chart of the British pound. All we see on that chart is just the daily high-low close bars. If this were all I could see on a chart, I would never take another trade. The reason is, for 13, 14 years now, I have become accustomed to seeing the delta information overlaying a bar chart. For me, trading a chart without that information would be just like riding a bicycle blindfolded. So I'm going to put the delta information on this chart, and we're going to zero in a little closer so we can see the numbers as they come up, and show you a few things that this Delta Graphics program does. First of all, we'll put up a price box, and this price box gives the open, high, low close of the particular bar that the cursor is on, and the date. We also see a cursor arrow, and it is giving the day or the date on the left-hand upper side and the price right beside it. So we will take off the box here, and we will go to a weekly chart. We hit 1 key, and now we have a weekly chart. Now, this weekly chart was made up by using information from the daily chart. In other words, it puts those days together to make a weekly chart. Therefore, you don't have to have both daily data, weekly data, and monthly data, because this program makes all of that from the daily data. So we hit another key, and now we have a monthly chart. That's going back to 1988. So let's go back to the daily chart. Now we're back to a daily chart, and we will start putting the delta information on the daily chart. The first thing we will put on is the long-term delta turning points. This time we only have 1 long-term point in sight, and that is the long-term 2 high. Now, if we want to look at a previous chart, we hit 1 key, and now we're looking at the chart previous to this chart, and we see another delta turning point here, which is a high 1. Now let's go to a weekly chart and put the delta turning points on the weekly chart, and we see a number of points. Here is the 1 that we looked at before, here is the 2, and so what we have is a down move from the 1 to the 2, and then a move back up to the high 2. So we have an in-between point in the long term right here. And now the rotation is fixed, because now we know it's 1, 1.2, and the other points will follow 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So let's look at the some points out in the ahead of us. We just click on the screen, push 1 key, and now we have the delta turning points in the future lined up for us to look at. We'll put our price box back up, and if we want to see what the date is for this low 3, it appears at the top of the box, which is October 22nd, 1997. If we want to see point 7, click on it, and again we have it in the box. Now let's look at some other interesting things. We're still on the weekly now, and look at this 13 low. That's the last point in the series, long-term 13, moving up to this 1 high, and again a pretty long move down from the 1 back up to the 2. So again, another example of the long moves around point 1. Now let's move to the monthly chart. We had another key, and we'll put up our long-term delta information on the monthly chart. And now we're going back to about 1987, and look at this 1 right here, this 1 high, long-term 1 high. Look at the big move on either side of that 1 high. And if we move this box here, we see another 1 high 4 years before that, and there's the 1, the 2, up to the 3, and then another big move around point 1. Now let's go to the daily chart, and let's add the, let's go all the way to the daily chart here. Okay. Now we're up to date. Let's add the medium-term points to this chart. So here are the medium-term points. We'll move the chart over a little bit. And here we have a medium-term 4 low. Here's a 5 high, a 6 low, 7 high, 8 low, and a strong move up to a 9 high. And this big move here moves this 9 beyond the delta point as we might expect. But again, as we might expect, the 10 snaps right back in place. Now let's look at the medium-term points in the future, and we just move the chart over, and here we see the future points. If you want to know the date of medium-term 1, we click it, look up in our box, and it's September 24, 97. Now let's come back and add the intermediate term points to the chart. And now we see how all of the intermediate term moves show up according to the intermediate turning points. Here is a 1, this is a 2 high, coming down to a 3 low right here, back up to a 4 high, down to a 5 low, up to a 6 high, down to a 7 low, up to an 8 high, down to a 9 low, up to a 10 high, and then to a 1 low. And this 1 low came early, indicating that we were going to see a pretty good up move here due to the buying pressure because that point came early. Now what we have here is a 1 dot in between point, a 2 low, a 3 high, and a 4 low. As we might expect, this low is coming a little late due to this downward momentum of this move. Now suppose we wanted to change the rotation. For example, let's say here that we want to see what it looked like if we had a 2 high without the inversion. So we click on the 2 and we touch a key, and what happens? The 2 becomes a high, the 3 becomes a low, the 4 becomes a high, and so on. So this doesn't look as good as what we had, so we'll go back to the inversion situation. And so now we're back where we started. If we want to see the future intermediate term point dates, we simply move our data back, and we're looking now at our future turning point dates. If we want to see the date of the future 1, put our price bar back up, and it's October 10, 97. So we'll move the data back to where we had it. And now let's demonstrate a few things that we can do besides see all our delta information on the chart. Let's go back in time to about this point on the chart and get rid of everything here that's in front of that simply by pushing one key. And now let's just space one bar at a time through the chart. Now this is very interesting if you're trying out some new ideas and you want to just space through one day at a time to try out a system or whatever you want to try out. There's also a mode on here that you can use to keep track of your entries and exits, and it'll keep up with your profit and loss just by pushing a few keys relative to what your system might be. Let's go back in time again and look at another thing we can do with this. How about an atom projection? We hit one key, there's our atom projection. And toggle it off by hitting the same key again. Now let's look at all of the things that are available to you in this charting program. Here's a list of everything that you can do. There's moving averages, Bollinger Bands, parabolic, volatility, directional movement, stochastics, Fibonacci retracements, momentum, just a lot of things. In fact, about everything that you can think of you'd want to see as far as a study or system goes, it's included in this program. So let's look at a couple of things. How about a Keltner channel? We select the Keltner channel, we hit our key, and there's the Keltner channel on our chart. Let's select something else. We go back to our studies and we take off the Keltner, and suppose we want to see some Gann angles. Come down to Gann angles, select it, come back to our chart, and now it's asking us to pick a starting point. So let's go back and pick, how about this point? Well, let's go down and pick the low point for a starting point. And we hit one key, and now we need to pick a high point or an ending point. So we come up and come over to this point right here and hit another key, and there are the Gann angles. Pretty interesting. Look at the support this angle gave. Look at the resistance you had at this angle and this angle too. So we'll move on and take off our Gann angles. And well, let's see, what else do we want? How about a Fibonacci retracement? We come up to Fibonacci, select that, and let's go back to the same 2 points we did before on the Fibonacci retracement. So we're going to come to a high point and say H for high. We go down to a low point and say L for low, and there is our Fibonacci retracements. Also look at these bars here. Notice that the top bar was right at the height of that move before it ended and fell down through it. And to take this off, we can simply toggle it off by doing an alternate F. Well, let's put a relative strength index study with an alternate R. We'll add to that a directional movement study. And just for fun, let's also put up a stochastics. So now we have 3 studies under our chart. That's about all we can put on because we won't have much room left for our chart. We can toggle those off. And how about a spread? We can set up a spread chart. We hit one key. Now, what do we want to spread this with? Well, let's see. It's British pound. How about spreading it with Canadian dollar? So we choose a Canadian dollar. And there's our spread chart. And we can manipulate this chart just like we do any other chart. Um, and there's a spread chart. We take it off simply by hitting one key. We'll put our information back on, and we're back to our original chart. Now, you can also adjust the variables on all of these studies and all of these systems simply by going to another screen. You can also print this chart simply by hitting the P key, and you will have a hard copy of the chart. As far as the data goes, you can manually input the data every day if you want to, or you can get your data from a data bank, which is what most people do nowadays. So this is just a quick overview of Delta Graphics and what it can do. And when you get the program, you'll find out a lot of other things we have not been able to cover. But in a nutshell, that's what Delta Graphics looks like. Finally, I would like to take just a few minutes and talk about what you get as a Delta member. The first thing you get is a hard copy printout. And this printout is a printout of the intermediate term, the medium term, and the long-term turning points for the coming year. Now, this is set up on a quarterly basis, so that if you start in the second quarter, then your printout will go through the second quarter of the following year. Another thing you get is the monthly members letter, and in this letter I cover every turning point on all three time frames for every commodity. So that's about 75 turning points that are covered in the letter. Also, we cover a little explanation of what's happening. We cover rotations, whatever might be pertinent to that particular turning point. Also in the letter, there's a section that is called Trading Tips. In this section, I point out the best things developing in Delta from a longer term perspective. Very good trades that are lining up that you should be watching for, this kind of thing. Now, there are three ways that you can get your members letter. One way is over the internet, the other way is by fax, and the third way is by mail. Another thing you get as a Delta member is you get our time, you get our help. We have 6 people available at 2 locations, one in McLeansville and one in Alabama, and we are there to help you with anything you might want to know. Anything about turning points, about any market situation might be developing, just anything you want to know, we are there ready to help you. The other thing you get as a member is the option to acquire the Delta Graphics program. Now, this program is available only to members, obviously, because it has members' information on the screen. And we'll get into the cost of that in a minute, but if you already have the One Day at a Time program, then it's a $200 upgrade to the Delta Graphics program. Now, let's talk about membership cost. Some people still think that membership cost is $3,500, which is what it was when in 1984 when we first opened up the Delta Society. However, right now the membership is $1,200, and that is good for 6 years. There is an annual renewal fee to renew your membership each year, and that is $200. Now, the Delta Graphics program is $495, and it also has a yearly renewal to pay for the support and so on of the program, and that is $200 also. Now, some people start as a member, and then when they become familiar with Delta, then they will update to the Delta Graphics program, and that's available to members anytime they might want it. Now, another thing that we haven't talked about much is the stock division. We do have a stock division for Delta. The stock division is headed up by John Cooter. John is in Florida, and John will be glad to talk to you about anything pertaining to the stock division. And John Cooter's number is area 941-956-1105. So if you would like to get some more information on membership, the first thing you would have to do is to get a membership application. And this application is available. Simply give us a call if you like. The telephone number to call for the application is area 910-698-0500, or fax number is 910-698-0356. Our internet address is www.dwilder@Delta Society. Anytime you have questions or you need help on anything, whether you are a registered book owner or a Delta member, we are available to help you. So just feel free to give us a call. And in closing, I would like to say welcome to the Delta Perspective.